The news that broke about Lamar Jackson put all of Baltimore on high alert. A stepped-on ankle, a practice cut short, the risk of missing the biggest game of the season, and all of this happening in the same week. He was finally supposed to face Aaron Rodgers for the first time. Suddenly, everything shifted, and no one really knows how Lamar will show up, or if he'll show up on Sunday. And the impact is massive, because the Ravens are about to face the Steelers in a matchup that could decide leadership, confidence, and even the direction of the entire season. With the recent dip in performance, the Thanksgiving loss, and a team still trying to stabilize itself, Lamar's new physical issue puts an enormous weight on everything ahead. Every detail of this story pushed the fan base into suspense, turning this into one of the tensest weeks of the year. Practice was moving at a normal pace until the moment Lamar Jackson got stepped on, felt pain in his ankle, and had to leave the field, all in the same week as the toughest game of the season. Even with Ian Rappaport's update offering some relief, losing practice time right now changes the entire mood instantly. Steelers week is never simple, and every rep matters when the AFC North race is this tight. Even if it looks minor, any ankle discomfort is dangerous for a quarterback who relies so much on explosive movement. You can't ignore the recent injury history that has shaped part of this season, and one wrong step brings all those concerns right back. The schedule doesn't help either. There's no time to rest, and every little detail now directly impacts the final stretch. The emotional side of the team also takes a hit, especially after the Thanksgiving loss to the Bengals. When Lamar isn't fully loose, the offense loses rhythm, and that affects every detail of the game plan. Now, with this new concern, the coaching staff has to adjust everything carefully to keep the situation from snowballing through the week. And when the opponent is Pittsburgh, any limitation becomes a bigger issue. Their defense brings pressure nonstop, and that intensity demands constant mobility inside the pocket. How Lamar's ankle responds could define the entire tone of the game and even influence the race of the division. And that uncertainty creates the bridge to the next big storyline of the week: Lamar Jackson versus Aaron Rodgers for the first time ever. It's almost strange to think Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, two MVPs from different eras, have never faced each other. This matchup had everything to be one of those special NFL moments, a mix of styles that grabs anyone who follows the game. It was supposed to be the main headline of the week, but Lamar's injury stole the spotlight. Still, the weight of this showdown remains huge, and nobody wants to see it compromised. Rodgers arrives in a unique phase of his career, still finding rhythm, celebrating his 42nd birthday, and drawing attention for things happening on and off the field. On the other side, Lamar represents a new era, explosive, unpredictable, capable of changing the entire feel of the game with a single play. The contrast between the two almost feels cinematic, putting different worlds on the same field out of nowhere. For Lamar, this matchup carries an emotional layer of its own. He arrives under pressure, questioned, and dealing with ankle discomfort while the whole country watches his every move. With Rodgers across the field, every throw, every read, every broken play takes on a different level of meaning. The comparisons are inevitable, even unfair, and each snap becomes heavier than the last. But everything hangs by a thread, because Lamar's availability depends entirely on how that ankle reacts. The possibility of this long-awaited matchup happening with one QB clearly limited creates a tense atmosphere, as if the first battle between these MVPs might already come with an asterisk. And that leads directly into the next point, the real risk that Lamar might not take the field at all. The Ravens haven't confirmed Lamar for Sunday, and that alone speaks volumes. Even with Rappaport trying to calm everyone down, the internal mood is different. The possibility of him missing another game affect the offense and the team's momentum immediately. It would be his fourth absence of the season, reopening every durability discussion Baltimore has tried to avoid for years. Recent history doesn't help. The quad injury that sidelined Lamar for 3 games created a worrying pattern of physical issues popping up at the worst possible moments. Even when he plays, any limitation in mobility affects the entire offense, which depends heavily on the dual-threat dynamic to create openings and break defenses. The situation becomes even more serious when you look at the season context. There are only a few games left, the playoff race is tight, and Baltimore has zero margin for error. Playing with a backup drastically changes the competitive level of the team, especially in a divisional matchup. The impact isn't only technical, it's emotional, strategic, and potentially decisive for the rest of the year. And even if Lamar plays, the question is how he'll look. A limited version of him shrinks the playbook, slows down the pace of calls, and makes life easier for the defense. This isn't something solved by outside optimism, and that uncertainty connects directly to the next warning sign, the drop in production that started before this new injury.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Even before the ankle issue, Lamar's numbers were already showing a clear decline. He's sitting at 64.8% completions, 1,841 yards, and 15 touchdowns, numbers that put him on track for his least productive season since his rookie year. For someone who's always in the MVP conversation, that's a real red flag. And the AFC isn't waiting for anyone to get back in rhythm. The loss of the Bengals made everything even more obvious. Lamar finished the game with 0 touchdowns, took 3 sacks, and watched the offense stall in key moments. There were flashes, but nothing consistent enough to keep the team competitive. The offense lost fluidity, lost explosiveness, and lost identity, and that weighs even more when the defense isn't playing its best football. This pattern has been consistent in recent weeks. The combination of physical limitations and offensive instability creates a barrier that's hard to break this late in the season. Without full-speed practices and without Lamar at 100%, adjusting the offense becomes a much tougher task. And every game without progress makes the final stretch even tighter. Now, with the ankle as a new obstacle, the challenge gets even heavier. The coaching staff needs to find ways to lighten Lamar's physical load without completely changing the offense. This isn't just about stats. It's about rhythm, confidence, and health. And that directly impacts the most important matchup of the week, one that could decide the AFC North lead. With both teams sitting at 6-6, Ravens versus Steelers is the kind of game that can reshape the division. These matchups are usually tight, physical, and decided by small details, especially when two rivals know each other this well. In games like these, any physical limitation becomes a deciding factor, and Lamar's situation sits right at the center of it. The Steelers arrive with their always aggressive defense, ready to collapse the pocket and attack any moment of hesitation. Their recent history shows how they turn Ravens games into battles decided by just a few possessions. A limited or absent Lamar completely changes the way these contests are played. For Baltimore, this is a moment of real urgency. Playing at home, with the division lead on the line, right after a tough loss, creates an emotionally charged environment. It's a kind of matchup that usually defines the tone for the final month. A win puts the team back on track. A loss opens the door for questions that are hard to control. And facing Pittsburgh in December, with the AFC North wide open and Lamar deal with another physical issue, brings a familiar feeling to those who followed this team for years. Games like this separate the teams ready for the final sprint from the ones that fall behind. And everything revolves around how the team responds to the latest chapter in Lamar's ongoing injury storyline. With everything that happened this week, the stepped-on ankle, the uncertainty about Lamar Jackson's availability, the recent drop in production, and the massive weight of the Steelers' matchup, it's clear the Ravens have entered one of those season-defining moments. Every detail, every read, every physical response from Lamar can change the outcome of the AFC North battle. And that turns a simple game into something bigger, full of tension, expectation, and responsibility for a team that can't afford another slip. Now, the big question is simple. Should Lamar play even if he's not 100%, or is the risk too high at this point in the season? Because no matter the answer, one thing is obvious. This Sunday could be the turning point, whether through resilience or through the impact of another setback at the worst possible moment. And Baltimore will feel every second of it, as if the entire month depends on this game.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.